Today, we're going to take a look at a topic which I think will be useful in the coming weeks. It is a question of how we are going to deal with parties and holidays and how this is going to affect our animals. So I think this is a topic which is useful to get started on now, as we will see as we go through this presentation. So we've got lots of things coming up soon. We've got Christmas, we've got Hanukkah, we've got Diwali, we've got New Year, and any number of other parties which may be going on at different times. So what this means really is that in our homes, very often there are more people coming around than usual. There may be a lot more activity than usual, even within our own family, people buying gifts and wrapping them and so on, preparing lots of food. There are often parties, and parties generally involve music and quite loud laughter sometimes, and people generally merrymaking. And particularly at New Year's time, we've got probably fireworks going on either in neighboring, in the vicinity, or the municipal fireworks display. So all of these things mean that for our animals, it means upheaval. So generally speaking, the normal routine is broken because people are not doing these things as they would normally do them at the same time as they would normally do them. And often it also means separation, because sometimes people go away to spend these days away from home, and they may leave their animals in the care of someone else who may be known or maybe not, but certainly it's not somebody who is usually in the house, or they may even have them in a residential facility. So definitely separation is something to be borne in mind. So for our animals, all this time which people generally regard as a fun time, for our animals, is it fun or is it actually a nightmare? So some of the things we might see in our animals over these days when so many things are going on are that the animal is a bit perplexed, agitated, moving around all the time, can't lie down to rest. And when there is a lot of movement and things become more escalated, then generally speaking, dogs will try to, and cats will try to find a safe place, a place where they can take themselves off from all this hustle and bustle and be calmer. When things become more excited, and particularly when fireworks are involved, we're going to see things like, if we look at the dog's eyes, we'll see that the pupils may be dilated, the animal may begin to pant, salivation and trembling, and in the worst case scenario, the animal may even try to escape, so that if the doorbell rings, someone opens the door, the dog no longer feels that the home environment is a safe environment, and so may try to escape and run out the door. And in the case of animals who are suffering from separation, then apart from these things, we may also see a loss of appetite, because their routine has been in upheaval, and they're not quite sure about what's going on or the place where they are. So why are some dogs afraid of fireworks and loud noises anyway? Well, there are two major factors involved in this. And the first one is that the startle reflex is hardwired in our brains. When we hear a loud or sudden or unexpected noise, then we startle. And this can cause a number of different reactions. Evolutionary history predisposes us to fear things that may harm us. So hearing these loud noises, which provoke the startle reflex, will be considered by the brain as a sign that something harmful is going on or is about to happen. So that's the basic reason why. So not all dogs, of course, are afraid of fireworks, but a study carried out in the UK showed that of the sample that they used, which was quite a large sample of 1,225 dogs, 52% were affected by fireworks. They were also able to ascertain that this fear developed mostly during the first year of life. This is important for us because if we have a puppy or a young dog who has not experienced fireworks and all the hustle and bustle of party times, then we must be more vigilant and more careful to make sure that we can provide a safe and secure place so that the event does not become a traumatic experience for this puppy. Because once this reflex has been triggered, it's more difficult to then put the genie back in the box, as it were. They also discovered that as dogs grew older, it was less likely after the first year of life that they would develop fear of fireworks. And very few dogs developed this fear after the age of 7. So this clearly puts the onus squarely on us if we have young dogs to make sure that we try to prevent as far as possible that this event will be traumatic for them and therefore introduce a fear which they might have been able to avoid. Also, fear of fireworks was found to be related to fear of gunshot and thunderstorms. That's quite logical, really, because gunshots and thunderstorms are also sudden, quick, loud noises, which would also set off the startle reflex. But they found that this fear of fireworks was not related to other behavioral issues. The genetic component was found to be very important, and this is quite logical, and many studies have been done now which show that if a mother or even a grandmother, in some cases they've done studies over 7 generations, if a mother has been afraid of fireworks, for example, then it is more likely that the offspring will also develop this fear, particularly if the mother has an episode of fear while she is still looking after the puppies. So that is another thing to bear in mind. Another study done in Calgary in Canada, which showed that dogs who are afraid of fireworks, many of them are also afraid of other noises, which we've just seen. This study showed that fireworks can provoke panic attacks. Now, this would come under the category of what I was mentioning before, of animals feeling that their place is no longer safe and they have a panic attack and rush out the door if the door is opened. It was also found to be related to anxiety, stress, and fear, and disorientation. The disorientation factor would be really important if the animal were to escape from its home, and since it's in a state of panic, it begins to run, and it's running, and when finally it stops running, it can be disoriented because it has no idea why it came to be there or how it came to be there, and therefore this disorientation may mean that the animal might find it difficult to return home. So how about noise sensitivity? What are the factors involved in it? Dogs can hear sounds up to 45,000 to 65,000 hertz, while young humans with good hearing can only hear up to 20,000. So that is a huge difference, which means that our dogs are more likely to hear things which we may not even be aware of. In fact, a colleague in the UK wondered why a little dog that she was fostering was always barking in the kitchen when there was, for her, no apparent reason for it. And it turned out that one day, a friend came by who wore a hearing aid, and the dog began to bark when the kitchen tap was turned on. And this friend said, "I know why she's barking. It's because of the noise of the water coming through the tap." A person with normal hearing would not have been able to perceive that. But the lady who was wearing the hearing aid, because of the hearing aid picking up all kinds of different sounds, she was able to pinpoint where that noise was coming from. And that was a great help. So we have to be aware that our dogs are going to hear things that we are probably not able to hear. There's a difference between another difference between us and our dogs, and that is that we are better able to pinpoint where the sound is coming from. In fact, human spatial acuity can narrow things down to within 1 degree, whereas dogs can pinpoint where the noise is coming from in a range of 4 to 8 degrees. Now, that's quite a large difference. And it also is one of the reasons why animals may feel rather threatened, because apart from the loudness of the noise and the suddenness of the noise, they're not sure where it's coming from. And this is another factor to instigate fear. So how can we help them then? Well, we can do quite a lot of things, actually. The first thing we can do is control the environment. And by controlling the environment, we mean changing how intensely our dogs perceive this event. We can do it by a number of different things, and we'll look at each one in a moment, but we can provide a safe space. If we know that our dog is happy in a particular place, and we know that there's going to be a lot of things going on and fireworks and so on, we can take the dog to that safe space and spend some time with him there. We can also help by muffling the sound. We can draw the curtains, we can put down rugs, we can, if we have shutters, we can close them, we can close doors. So we are isolating the sounds as far as possible. And we know that tapestries and curtains and rugs and carpets all help to muffle sound. So the more we can help them with that, the better. We can also play calming music, and I mean calming. I don't mean heavy rock or things like that. So we want to have calming music where there is not a huge variation in registers. You're not going to have really high notes and then really low notes, where you're not going to have soft passages and then really loud passages. So I think things like Beethoven would be out for that. So things which are more likely to be helpful there are Palestrina, and generally polyphonic music is very good. Or the other thing we could do is have white noise. Or if we have a particular tape, for example, there's a tape called Canine Lullabies, which is very helpful to help dogs calm down. The other things we can do are giving exercise and playing games. And we're going to look at that in a moment, as well as T-touch and zoopharmacognosy, which are basically the main focus of what I'm going to be talking about. The other way we can help control things is through emotional control. We can change how the animal feels in relation to what's going on. And by that means that we can do all these things like exercises, games, T-touch, and zoopharmacognosy, which we're going to be looking at. So what kind of symptoms might we see which would indicate to us that our animal is beginning to become upset? Well, the animal may become sensitive to touch in its hindquarters, also in the ears, paws, and particularly the tips of the ears. The tips of the ears and the paws may feel cold to the touch, and the hindquarters may also feel cold. The base of the tail may be tense. Now, we tend to look at whether the tail is raised or lowered, but often the tail may not be raised and it may not be tucked between the legs, but there may be tension at the base of the tail. So we should pay attention to that. And there may also be tension in the lumbar area. Of course, what I'm talking about today has to do with holidays and parties and loud noises and fireworks. But if we were to see any of these symptoms in our dogs or any cats, for example, at any other time, then we would want to check whether the animal has joint problems like in the hips or the knees, or problems with its ears, its back, or maybe it has arthritis. So what we want to do is involve as many of the senses as possible. So we want to involve the 7 senses. As far as sight is concerned, we can modulate the amount of light. If the animal feels more secure in a darkened or dimmed light, then we can turn off the light or turn down the light or just leave on a little red night light. And we want to make sure that the family environment feels like a safe and comfortable space for our dogs. The next thing we can do involving the sense of taste is to have on hand favorite treats and chews and things that the animal can work on with its mouth, because we know that emotions, the mouth is one of the basic entrances into the emotional system. However, when an animal, we have to do this before the animal becomes really uptight, because once the animal goes over a certain threshold, many of them will not eat or anything or take anything to eat. For hearing, as we've mentioned earlier, we can muffle the noise using as many things as we can, curtains, rugs, a nice cozy bed, and play soft music or white noise. With smell, we can involve the sense of smell by giving aromas which the animal is familiar with and which make the animal feel secure. And that we can do by using zoopharmacognosy, which we're going to be talking about in a moment. For the emotional point of view, and this also involves zoopharmacognosy, because the smells can help induce a sense of calm, as we're going to see. So for T-Touch, we can use T-Touch wraps. And T-Touch wraps will be a great help. Many people have found them to be a really lifesaver at this time of year, and we're going to see how to do that. The other thing that we can involve is the vestibular system of the animal, which involves movement. So we can have the animal move around. Often when an animal is afraid, the very last thing it wants to do is stand still. So if we do some exercise, if we play some games, we can put treats around the floor and ask the dog to find them. We can play different games with its favorite toy. We can do free work, confidence coursework, like going over different surfaces, going over obstacles, under obstacles, through obstacles, and so on. This, of course, we would do before things got too excitable. Then we want to involve the proprioceptive system, letting the animal know where its body and its limbs are in space. And for that, we would also use T-Touch bodywork, the wraps, and anything involving movement. So let's take a look now at how we can use Tellington T-Touch to get through these days. The first thing, as I mentioned earlier, is the T-Touch body wrap. So this particular video was done for a Spanish course, so I've turned off the sound and I will just talk you through it as we go. And the configuration I'm going to show here is a half wrap. The half wrap is perhaps the most commonly used configuration in T-Touch. It's simple to put on and it's very effective, and most animals really quite enjoy having it on once they become used to it. Before we start doing anything with a wrap, we've got to have the correct tools to work with. And we've also got to realize that we do not just simply take a wrap and put it on the dog willy-nilly without introducing it. So the first thing is, what kind of material are we going to use for the wrap? We're going to use an elastic bandage. Elastic bandages expand and contract, and so they can provide, on the animal's body, they provide a sense of being swaddled, like babies used to be in the past. So that sense of giving them a hug, basically, is what we are aiming to do with the wrap. The important thing is that it should be an elastic bandage. And there are a number of different, you can buy them in pharmacies often, or sometimes online. And one of the major brands is Ace bandages. And you would get one depending on the size of your animal. It can be smaller or larger. Clearly on my little helper here, Tellington T-Touch doggy, then he is quite large, so I'm going to be using the larger wrap. It's also important that it should be an elastic bandage, because often people are, when they go in to buy a bandage, they are offered a crepe bandage, but crepe bandages tend to curl up from the edges, and in the end they are very narrow and can cut into the skin. To attach the wrap once it's on, we will use a safety pin, or sometimes you can now buy wraps with Velcro at either end. So what you will do to start, allow the animal to see the wrap and to smell it, and then you can stroke the animal with the wrap so that it becomes familiar with it and it's getting its own smell on it. And often what we do is we can offer it, we open it up a little, double it, fold it over, and put some treats on it, so that we are using the wrap actually as a kind of plate. And once an animal has eaten from some place, then that thing is usually quite acceptable. So what we do then, we can just initially lay the wrap over the animal's body. But to put it on, we divide it in two. We fold it over in the center, put the center on the center of the dog's chest, cross either end over the shoulders, and then bring them under the belly like this and secure the ends on the back. It's important to remember that when we are going to secure the wrap, we do not want to put a safety pin actually on top of the spine, because any metal touching the spine is going to be uncomfortable, and that is precisely what we don't want with this activity. So the dog will have the front part of its body wrapped, which for emotional things is perhaps the most important area. But in this particular configuration, the last part of the wrap, which is the one which has got the safety pin in it, we can actually pull it back towards the tail. And sometimes that also helps to calm the tail of the dog once we have put it on. So although it's very simple, as you've just seen, it's absolutely simple thing to put on, but its simplicity is not a sign that it doesn't work. It is highly effective. And so I would recommend this configuration as one of the best ones that you can use to calm your dog. So once the wrap is on, as we've seen how to put it on, how long do I leave it on? Well, at first, the very first time, this was going to depend very much on the individual animal. Some animals are quite happy with it on from the very start. Others will begin, because they're receiving sensory information which they normally don't receive, then they may become a little, find it a little bit uncomfortable. So in that case, we would put it on, leave it on for a minute, take it off. And also for putting it on, we must go at the animal's pace always. If the first time we don't get to put it on completely, but only manage to put it over the shoulders, or only manage to cross it over the shoulders, but we don't actually secure it, that's fine. So what we want to do is work with the animal at its own pace. So once the animal has got used to having the wrap on, and we find that it helps as a calming tool, then that is fantastic, because once the dog knows that having this wrap on means a sense of calm, then each time we put it on, it will be easier for that dog to find that calm, gentle space. And normally we tend to put on the wrap and leave it for about a maximum of 18 minutes, because it has been found that habituation sets in after 18 minutes. However, during the crisis time, when we see that our dog is calmed with the wrap on, then we leave it on. And if necessary, on New Year's Eve, we leave it on all night. I have done this and I found it to be highly effective. So when you just have to go with what your observations are telling you. If your dog is calm with the wrap on, leave it on for all the time that there is so much excitement and noise going on. The next thing we can do is do some ear touches. And this is something that many people do instinctively. So you would put, as you can see in the picture there, you put your hand with the thumb either above or below the ear and the fingers on the other side, and you simply slide your fingers from the base of the ears to the tip. And you can cover the whole ear by doing parallel lines, starting from the base at one edge and then moving in and further in until you come to the other edge at the far side. And in cases of emergencies and in cases of panic, like we might have with fireworks, then we would do the slides more quickly and more firmly. And when we get to the end, we can actually press the tip of the ear, because that is a panic point in Chinese medicine, acupuncture point. So that is very helpful for animals to reduce the amount of stress that they're feeling. This link, which you see here to YouTube, is, you will, if you go there, you will see how to do ear touches and ear work in T-Touch. In fact, on that my YouTube channel, you will find a number of videos showing different techniques which you might be able to use. So the next thing is, when should we start doing these things? Well, we should start as soon as possible. We are now halfway through November, so it's the sooner we get started, the better. And the reason for this is that the more that we work with our dog and the more we help that dog feel calm, it's like making deposits into that dog's bank account. In this case, it's not money that we're depositing calm time. So when we accumulate this deposit of calm time, when the stressful time comes, then the dog has a balance that he can draw on to neutralize the stress that he feels when the fireworks are going on, when the animal is separated, when there's too much noise and there are so many people buzzing around. All the situations which are quite common and normal at this time of year. So the sooner we get started on this, the bigger the favor we're doing to our dogs. The other thing which I mentioned is zoopharmacognosy. Now, zoopharmacognosy involves allowing animals to actually choose the oils that they need to help themselves. We don't force any oils on them. We allow them to choose. So let's see what kind of oils we might be able to use to help them. Animals can help themselves by self-medicating, and they do this, but they themselves choose not only the substance that they need, but how they are going to take it, the administration route. So they can either take things into their mouths and swallow them, which would not normally be the case with essential oils, but with solid things, or they can use their olfactory systems, which, as we know, are absolutely amazing. Sniffing, inhaling, or the vomeronasal system. They can also take things onto the tongue and just hold them there, or things can be applied topically. Now, I'm not going to go into all of this. I just wanted you to know that these are all the possibilities, because this is actually a full course in itself. So mostly what you will find your animals are going to do is inhale or sniff things. So how about for anxiety? Anxiety is one of the common factors of these days. So oils that we might find useful are bergamot, hemp, copaiba, frankincense, Roman chamomile, linden blossom, lavender, valerian, and rose. In fact, with any of these, you can use the essential oil or the floral water if it's available. I'm putting this list because many people who maybe work with aromatherapy or other things may already have some oils at home. So it's not a question of rushing out to buy new oils. So rose is rather expensive, but the floral water is more economical. So if you can have access to rose, that is really a major oil or floral water for dealing with trauma. Frankincense for fear is a #1 oil, but hemp, any of these, valerian, lavender, these are all calming oils. So any of these oils that we can allow our animals to smell, that's fine. What we would do is open the bottle, see what the animal's reaction is. Do not just stick the bottle right under the dog's nose. Allow the dog to approach, or approach very slowly ourselves, but giving the animal space to set up its own working distance. If we see that the dog likes and responds well to one oil and continues to respond to that oil, but we would like to try something else, we can leave that bottle open on the floor and while we open another bottle. And for fear and fear of loud noises particularly, we've got frankincense, which I've just mentioned, which is the #1 oil for fear. Jasmine. Sandalwood is the #1 oil for noise sensitivity. So that is another useful oil to have. Linden blossom and violet leaf are other oils which would be useful for fear and fear of loud noises. And then for anticipation of a negative event, this is important because if the first event of fireworks has caught us unawares, or the first number of people coming to the house has caught us unaware and the dog was not prepared, then the next time the dog may be anticipating, when the doorbell rings, may be anticipating a negative event. So these oils are useful for that. The main oil here is violet leaf, and the supporting oils would be frankincense, rose, and sandalwood. So I would say if you have access to these 3 oils, frankincense, rose, and sandalwood, then you're well on your way to dealing with the kind of situations which are likely to occur in the next month or so. Oils for separation. The major oil for separation is neroli, which you can also get at Floral Water, mimosa as well, and copaiba. And backing up those, frankincense, jasmine, and marjoram. So we've got quite a few things here that we can use, and we can also support them with what I call the supporting cast. These are not, well, coconut oil is an oil, but these are things that can really help the animal at an internal level. Spirulina is a magnificent seaweed, which comes in powder form. It contains approximately 64% protein, and it contains the vitamin B complex. Now, the vitamin B complex is fundamental for anything to do with the nervous system. So, and it also contains lots of other vitamins and minerals. So if we can offer our animals spirulina, in fact, you can actually add it. This is not for zoopharmacognosy, adding it to the food, but as a supplement, you could do this. Coconut oil is another thing which is helpful, and nettles. So I think with these things that we've mentioned, we've got quite an arsenal of tools that we can use, a good toolbox that we can use to help our animals negotiate these days and make things more pleasant for them and calm. So thank you for listening, and I wish you good luck with working with your animals, and I hope that these holidays will be a calm and non-stressful time for you and for your pets.